Krystyna Skarbek. A Life Without Reward. By Alan T. Cunningham. Narrated by Ava Flame. Prologue. The Forgotten Woman. London in the early 1950s moves quickly past her. Krystyna stands behind a counter, her posture straight, her hands calm and her face composed by long habit. Customers place coins in her palm without meeting her eyes. She is efficient, polite, but invisible. No one knows she once crossed borders with death as a certainty rather than a risk. No one suspects that men breathe freely because she refused to be intimidated by uniforms and titles. Britain is prosperous again and has learned how to forget her. Part 1. Poland. Chapter 1. A Daughter of Independence 1908 to 1938. Krystyna Skarbek was born in Warsaw into a country that had only just reclaimed its right to exist. Poland's independence was recent, fragile, and fiercely defended, and that atmosphere shaped her childhood as surely as her family did. Her father came from the landed gentry, a man of pride whose fortunes declined with history rather than mismanagement. Her mother was cultured, intelligent, and resilient, carrying aristocratic discipline into diminished circumstances. From them, Krystyna inherited both defiance and adaptability. She learned early that dignity was not guaranteed by status and survival required movement, decisiveness, and nerve. She grew into a young woman who rejected limitation instinctively. She rode horses, skied competitively, traveled freely, and dismissed the expectations placed upon her gender. Risk was not recklessness to her but a calculation. Fear existed to be examined, understood, and overcome. Long before war arrived, she had trained herself to move through danger with clarity. Chapter 2. The World Narrows. As the 1930s progressed, Europe tightened around itself. Borders hardened, alliances shifted, and Poland stood exposed between ambitions larger than itself. Krystyna watched this with alert intelligence. Her brief marriage offered neither love nor freedom, and she left it decisively, understanding that personal captivity was a rehearsal for something worse. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, the collapse was swift and brutal, but it did not paralyze her. The world narrowed, but her purpose sharpened. Part 2. War. Chapter 3. Crossing the Mountains 1939 to 1940. Krystyna refused the role of victim or refugee. She chose usefulness. Carrying intelligence for the Polish resistance, she crossed borders illegally, moving through Hungary and across snowbound mountains on skis, with messages sewn into her clothing. Capture meant torture, interrogation, and likely death. She accepted this as a cost rather than a deterrent. Her physical endurance, mental discipline, and willingness to act without reassurance made her invaluable. She did not think of herself as brave, only necessary. Chapter 4. The SOE. Britain needed operatives who could move unnoticed, adapt quickly, and survive alone. Krystyna fit this need precisely. Recruited by the Special Operations Executive, she trained in weapons codes and sabotage, but her greatest asset required no instruction. Men underestimated her accent, her smile, her apparent recklessness. She learned to let them. Femininity became camouflage, charm became misdirection, and certainty became her most effective weapon. Chapter 5. Hungary and interrogation. Captured by Hungarian authorities and handed to the Gestapo, she was imprisoned and interrogated relentlessly. Rather than resist with silence alone, she engineered her own release. Coughing blood onto a cell floor, she convinced her captors she was dying of tuberculosis. Fear of infection succeeded where defiance would have failed. She was released not out of mercy but self-interest, and she walked out alive because she understood her enemy better than they understood her. Part 3. The Lie That Saved Lives. Chapter 6. Southern France 1944. The arrest of the SOE agents in southern France sent a shock through the resistance network. These were not minor couriers or expendable messengers, but senior organizers whose knowledge could unravel months of preparation. Interrogation had already begun. Execution was scheduled. Time compressed into hours. Krystyna absorbed the information without outward reaction. She asked precise questions about locations, names, and the temperament of the German officers involved. She did not propose a plan immediately. She never did. Action for her began internally where fear and possibility were weighed and discarded with equal efficiency. What mattered was authority. The Germans respected only power and inevitability. She would give them both. Chapter 7. Montgomery's Niece. She dressed carefully, not extravagantly, but with intention, choosing clothes that suggested confidence rather than desperation. At the German headquarters, she did not ask permission to enter. She behaved as someone accustomed to being obeyed. Her accent was correct, her manner clipped, her gaze unwavering. She introduced herself as a relative of General Bernard Montgomery and spoke as though this relationship were common knowledge. She described Allied advances with unsettling specificity. She named unit dates and locations already lost to Germany. She spoke of post-war tribunals, of files already compiled, of names written down. She implied personal interest. The implication mattered more than proof. The officers listening understood power even when it arrived wrapped in improbability. When resistance came, she leaned forward, slightly lowered her voice, and explained consequences. She made the future feel close and unavoidable. The prisoners were released quietly, bureaucratically, and without apology. Later, the Germans would claim the decision had been procedural, inevitable, and unrelated to her visit. That was acceptable. 3 men were alive because Krystyna Skarbek understood that the most effective weapon was certainty. Part 4. After Victory. Chapter 8. Decorations without belonging. She was awarded the George Medal and appointed an officer of the Order of the British Empire. The ceremonies were brief, the gratitude formal, and the support non-existent. There was no pension, no secure position, and no long-term acknowledgement. The men she saved returned to careers, respectability, and stability. Krystyna was thanked politely and then set aside. Her usefulness had expired. Chapter 9. An Alien in England. Post-war Britain was rebuilding itself and had little patience for inconvenient reminders of chaos. Krystyna was foreign, outspoken, and female. She did not fit the image of a hero the country wished to preserve. She worked as a ship stewardess in factories and in hotels, moving from job to job, never secure, never recognized. Her wartime service was treated as an embarrassment rather than an achievement. Part 5. Poverty and Silence. Chapter 10. The Long Unraveling. Victory did not bring relief. It brought erasure. Britain emerged from war exhausted, eager to rebuild, and impatient with reminders of moral complexity. Krystyna was awarded medals that acknowledged bravery without offering belonging. There was no pension, no permanent role, no institutional memory. She was thanked and then released back into civilian anonymity. Her foreignness, once useful, became a liability. Her gender, once exploitable, became inconvenient. She searched for work with the same determination she had once applied to survival. Ships, factories, hotels, each position temporary, each departure quiet. She did not speak of the war because when she did, listeners grew uncomfortable. Courage demanded reciprocity, and Britain preferred gratitude without obligation. Chapter 11. England as Exile. Post-war England was materially poor but emotionally closed. Krystyna rented rooms, moved often, and learned to make herself smaller. Supervisors corrected her, customers complained, and no one suspected that the woman serving them had once commanded fear in enemy offices. The humiliation was cumulative, not dramatic but relentless. Poverty stripped dignity thoroughly and without witnesses. She formed attachments that rarely lasted. Men admired her intensity but could not contain it. She had lived at a pitch of meaning that peace could not replicate. Loneliness settled not as despair, but as a dull, constant weight. She aged quickly because she was no longer necessary. Chapter 12. The Cost of Forgetting. Courage without recognition curdles into isolation. Krystyna did not regret what she had done, but she learned the cost of doing it for others. The country she had served retained her services without assuming responsibility for her survival. This was not malice. It was indifference, more efficient and more damaging. Part 6. Death and Aftermath. Chapter 13. A Violent End. 1952. In London, she was murdered by a man obsessed with her. The crime was reported briefly, sensationally, and then forgotten. There was no national mourning, no reassessment of her life, and no reckoning. Chapter 14. What was owed? Krystyna Skarbek altered outcomes, saved lives, and embodied courage without expectation of reward. Britain remembers victories, but often forgets the individuals who made them possible, especially when they are inconvenient to the story. Epilogue. Restoration. To remember Krystyna Skarbek now is not nostalgia. It is an act of delayed justice. History cannot repay what it took from her, but it can refuse to forget her again. Christine Granville, the name she used while living in England, was never thanked enough. This audiobook exists to say what history did not. Author's note. This audiobook is a work of narrative nonfiction. All major events are grounded in historical record, testimony, and contemporary accounts. Dialogue and inner reflection are reconstructed where necessary to convey emotional truth rather than literal transcription. The intention is restoration rather than legend building, and to return Krystyna Skarbek to the moral center of the history she helped shape.